to the latest edition, the newest edition of Pitching In. I'm Jason Mackey alongside or virtually with Michael McKenry. Fort, we're watching a Pirates team that is very exciting, man. I've been captivated by, I can't say I'm surprised by the regular season results. We're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about the Brian Reynolds situation, Oneil Cruz, big series this weekend with the St. Louis Cardinals. I want to talk a little bit about the rotation. We got some news on JT Brubaker. But first off, how are you and how have you been enjoying this start so far?
Mackey, I'm doing good. A little stressed. Me and you have a lot going on. So much going on. We didn't really even see each other over the homestand, which is kind of remarkable since.
No, Fort, I tried, and I texted you a picture. I should have tweeted this. That would have been funny.
That was funny.
I took an old man walk. I got tired of being
old man walk.
Old man walk.
What is that? Do you have a cane?
No, you just walk. A pair of Hoka's on and a Fitbit, and I'm sitting there. Like normally, I'd like.
An old man doesn't wear a Fitbit. He wears like a nice Fossil or a Rolex that his dad gave him.
Well, this is okay. So the Fitbit is actually my dad's, and my dad passed away in 2018, and so I
feel terrible. I'm sorry.
No. You're fine.
That's awesome.
Fine. But I wear it because it makes me think of my dad, and so
that's amazing.
I've Fitbit on, and normally I would want to run, but I've been so busy and have not had a lot of time to run and work out and do anything. So I don't know. I had 30 minutes before the ball game, and I did a little old man walk around the ballpark, and I came by and saw you, and you were too busy. I was listening to the pregame show, which was great, and I just seeing some parts of PNC that I hadn't seen in a while. And you were very studious. You were staring at a laptop, and you were very intense, and you're prepping it. So
I was just staring at the screen, playing Tetris. No big deal.
Yeah, so we've both been too busy, which, is it that way as a player for it? Like when you played beginning of the season, was it a little like helter-skelter? I've never done a season on a beat, hockey or baseball, where it started off the season and you immediately got to where you were supposed to get to. I use the term cruising altitude to you off the air, but I mean, that's kind of what it is. It still doesn't feel right. There's stuff coming in left and right, like asks, can you do this? We want to add this. There are bits of news and things happening from a Pirates perspective I'm having to write about. Is it that way on the other side? Or I don't know. Do you kind of flip the switch and you're like, okay, regular season mode from game one?
No, it's absolutely the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause you don't sleep. You're probably getting reunited with your family. You're trying to move into your place.
Yeah.
All these things are happening. And of course, what happens? Your entire family wants to come to the opening series. You get text from everybody you've ever met in your entire life, especially if it's a big series like last one, because I got a lot of texts about that opener. So yeah, it's overwhelming. I asked Kutch that question. I said, "Are you okay after the first night?" And he goes, "Yeah, dude. I got my brain going all over the place." And he's just talking to Mile a minute. I was like, "But you're exhausted." He goes, "Dude, I'm so exhausted." He put his head down. It was like two different people.
Yeah.
He literally, went from there, took a nap, came out and had another good night. But man, it really is. I'll never forget when I got traded to the Pirates, Mackey. I got there at 12. We played at 7:00. I don't know really anybody on this team. I'm catching that night. I don't know Paul Maholm and what he throws or how he's going to throw. Dude, I had to do scoreboard. I had to do interviews. I had to meet with the pitching coach, Hurdle, the hitting coach, and all these other things that didn't matter about my play on the field.
Right.
Then I look up and it's 3:30. We're out hitting. So I run into the cage, do my routine, run down there. I'm doing a meeting with Paul Maholm, run out there, play the game, and then I'm in Houston. Less than 12 hours later. It's a wild ride. You don't realize how fast it can get if you can't slow it down. But yeah, yours is a little bit different animal because you have a lot of people asking you a lot of different things. But yeah, it can get overwhelming.
But the thing, the crazy aspect for me is I'm not great. Well, I mean, I guess I am. I was going to say I'm not graded on my performance on a nightly basis, but I am sort of. People will read what I produce. But that's the thing that I love so much about baseball. And I guess it's the blessing and the curse. I feel like at the end of the night, you're given an exam, right?
A pop quiz.
A pop quiz. Yeah. And it's not a final grade, right? You can go 0 for 4 and you can still maybe have a good night or contribute to a win or whatever. And 0 for 4 doesn't mean you fail, but it is wild to me that you can get to the ballpark at 12 and you're barreling toward these, like, 4 at bats or 9 innings in the field or whatever it is. And, it just, you do all that stuff, and then the end of the night doesn't go well. You probably go home thinking, what the heck did I just do all this stuff for, man? But, then we come up the next day and do it anyway. So,
You know what? I would say 90% of the time I'm so focused on the bats, I didn't remember what I did prior to it.
really?
Yeah, you get
You don't
so
remember who you were? Like,
you
if
get
you
so overwhelmed with
you think you wouldn't know it going to the plate the 4th time?
yeah, I think I would now, but back
Yeah.
then I was so enamored with the game. At times it was my idol. It should have never been, but like I loved it. And you don't think like, oh, that could have affected me. That could have affected me, but it all affects you. And you got to find a balance some way. Now they do a lot better job protecting these guys, and the media availability isn't quite as I guess big as it was back in the day. I mean, they were everywhere when I showed up. It was 12 o'clock and they were in the, they were just wandering around. So I talked to every single beat writer that walked in because I'm so excited. And then they're like, oh yeah, you got scoreboard, not scoreboard,
What the heck
normal
are those
scoreboard.
beat
Like
writers doing there at 12 o'clock?
there was no rules back in the day.
There's still sanity. Why are you there at 12 o'clock? Why do you need?
I was a newbie. I'm like, I'm going to
Not
eat lunch
you.
there. I'm going to have a
Not
snack.
you.
I'm going to
I'm
eat
talking
dinner,
about
and then
me.
I'm going to break. Yeah, it was just,
I don't mean you, Ford. I mean the members of the media covering the team. What the heck were they doing in the clubhouse at noon for a 7 o'clock game?
some people just love being around the ball yard,
It's
Mackie.
an outrage. It's an outrage. I don't.
Well, like I said, it could have been just the janitor that was right there. I was talking to. I was just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But I loved it, every second of it.
All right. So we're not complaining. All we're saying is that at the beginning of the season, you're yet to find a routine. And a couple weeks in, we inevitably do. Players, media, you adjust. And I think we're starting to reach that point. I think what we're hoping that doesn't change, doesn't adjust, are the Pirates. They've had a really strong start for it. I'm encouraged by a lot of stuff I've seen. I really am. I like the way they've, I didn't think they played terribly in the Astros series. I know they lost 2 of 3. I like the win in what they did. I think there are some ingredients there to be good more times than not. Rich Hill was better today, 6 innings, 2 runs. That's what they thought they were getting. And that's what I think they are going to get. The guy that gave up 5 home runs in 9 innings in his first 2 starts, like you can't have that. So the pitching has to be better. We'll figure out how to survive offensively. But I don't know. What have you liked so far?
I mean, I think you're exactly right with the Houston series. I think the momentum coming in from Boston was a big deal, and the buzz that was created with everything that went on the first day, and just being able to fight and claw and win that game, I think set a precedent with a lot of those young guys of like what it could be. And I think the Oneil Cruz, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later, when he got hurt, the bounce back is probably a lot to do with like, hey, we got to keep moving forward because we all have a goal to make that the standard in Pittsburgh. I heard that a couple times from a couple guys, and that's really cool to see that they're starting to embrace what the city is, embrace what the team could be and will be if they all start believing in one ultimate goal. And I've really never seen a team come together the way they have thus far, especially in the clubhouse. Like they're all talking. I was sitting in the cage today and they're all kind of just, bantering back and forth, best game plan, nobody taking a certain lead. It was just constantly back and forth, back and forth.
Yep.
And it was really cool to see because you don't necessarily see that early on in the season, let alone sometimes ever. I've been on teams where like there was nothing of a team there. It's just a bunch of individuals showing up, putting on a uniform and playing, kind of like the White Sox. And I think this series with the Astros, they're just really good. I mean, it's only a matter of time that Eagle Eye Bergman, who seems to never swing out of the zone, was going to get hot, Tucker get hot, and then Alvarez is maybe one of the best hitters in the game, if not the best all-around hitter in the game and then Mitch Keller dominated him. But that was a fun series because I think the test that we saw some guys really step up, and Rich Hill shutting him down and for the most part, and then Keller doing the same thing, I think speaks to what those two guys can do.
Yeah. My dog is really unhappy right now that we're in the middle of his like scratching and attention time. So if
I think it was a pup night. My dog was mad too.
What?
I didn't take my dog. I told him this year I'd do better. And then the first one, I just left him. I'm like, man, he's going to be so mad when I get home. He wouldn't even look at me. He wouldn't. I came home. He was like, I know where you were. And I know what night it is. And I wanted a treat.
Man,
bring him.
that's the way my guy is. I come home from a road trip and I've got my suitcase, or if I get my suitcase out to go on a road trip, like he starts looking at me like, don't you dare. Don't you dare, old man. Don't you put clothes in that thing.
Don't. You better put a bone in there. Or a toy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm coming with you.
Yeah. No, it's I really liked how they handled themselves against the Astros for it. I mean, that we're talking about arguably the best team in baseball, right? I mean, that's a legit lineup. The outfield
and pitching staff. Jeez Louise.
Well, yeah, I was going to get there. The pitching staff's incredible. I wanted to give the outfield credit. I mean, that was some of the best outfield play I've seen in a long time.
You're exactly right.
Left, center, right. I mean, absolutely outstanding.
You know what really stood out with that to me, Mackey, is how good their communication was the entire time. I couldn't believe how good it was. Like, it's almost like they were tailing off, knowing and guy was about to dive.
Yeah.
And that's remarkable to me. That just shows like the trust in that outfield. That it really takes trust, especially when you're running that left center gap, because it's kind of a no man's land. It's very different than anywhere else. Obviously, they have very different ballpark as well, but that was cool to see how those guys communicated, because we've had some issues with that. And I think that's come over time, and whoever's leading that charge is really good.
Yeah. And I mean, the pitching staff too. Like you're giving me Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, and Jose Urquidy. I mean, get out of here.
Urquidy was really good today.
Oh, it was really good.
That changeup was where it came from today was remarkable. He's just like down. I was like, where'd this thing come from?
Right. Yeah. I think the Pirates will be very happy to be done with them. Although they play them here and then they don't go to Houston until next year. Right.
I think it's one series with everybody either home or away.
Right. And so they're done with Houston. They won't mind that. I don't think Boston and Chicago are going to be very good when all is said and done. At least based on what we saw. In Boston, not so much because they're a terrible team. Just like you're in the AL East, man. I mean, look what the Rays are doing. You know, the Yankees are going to be there. I think Toronto is going to be really good. Somebody's got to lose, but and I say that to say, like, I think Houston's going to be at the very top. And you're playing a tough team, and I got away from them, after the sixth inning after Hill left. But I don't know. It almost feels like you were kind of keeping it together for so long. Moretta gives up the three-run homer today, and just kind of like,
he didn't have a feel today, and no, I couldn't believe how well Chase Young threw today.
Yeah,
or DeYoung, because he had no feel. I was watching his warm-ups, and I do this at the office sometimes to see how a guy feels. And watching him warm up today, he was late with his arm. You know exactly what this is like, Mackey. And you're like, I cannot catch up. Start throwing breaking balls to get on top. And I was like, that's a veteran move.
Yep.
And in the entire inning, he was fighting. And every time he'd come back to that breaking ball. And the outing before, when he didn't have that feel, he wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool to see how these guys evolve, especially the older guys. Rich Hill today, using his cutter so much. And it was remarkable, and how that played so well with his other pitches. That's such a value that we cannot understand in the long term for this team.
My pitch mix was a weird thing for it. I don't know if I've ever told you this one, but
no.
So I had 3 pitches in college. I had 4-seamer, curveball that was absolutely terrible, and a splitter. And the splitter was my best pitch.
Why was it terrible? Did it just roll?
It didn't curve. It didn't move.
Did it just fall? Was it gravity?
It was just a cement mixer at all times. I mean,
was it a gyro?
No, it wasn't anything. You know how certain pitchers can just naturally spin a baseball? I was the exact opposite. I couldn't spin a baseball. I could not. I mean, I never had like a Rapsodo on my 4-seamer or something like that. I'm too much of a dinosaur, but I guarantee it was not.
We should try it now. Come on.
I would.
I know a catcher.
It wouldn't be. Yeah, I'd throw to you. I don't know if I could. I threw my arm out at fantasy camp, I think. It was like January 2020, and I'm warming up to go in a game, and Doug Drabeck's on the mound with me, right? And like 12-year-old Jace is throwing a bullpen, thinking like, Doug Drabeck's on the mound, man. Like, I better bring it. And it was too much too soon. For the rest of that week, I'm getting like this shooting pain in the back of my shoulder. I think that's calmed down, thankfully. But anyway, no, it's funny you say like getting a feel, because I mean, I had days where I couldn't throw my fastball or a curveball for a strike, but I could put my splitter anywhere I wanted to. And so like I just
Really?
throw that. It would become, and it was weird, man.
That's
Like,
such a hard pitch to have.
I
Wow.
had it. I had a pretty good one. Like I could get drop, I could get run on it, getting an in-arm side, throwing it for a strike. I could throw.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. Well, maybe, I mean, I'm 6'4" and I have very large hands, and I could literally wedge a baseball down between my middle finger and my pointer finger and like still throw it. And like I started out like a two-seamer and just basically split the ball in half, and I could still control it somehow. And I could snap my wrist and like pronate and, sort of I knew how I needed it to feel coming off of my fingers and like getting a little bit of like last minute spin on the ball. And I don't know.
And you couldn't find that feel with the other pitches?
No.
Huh.
No.
Everybody has that pitch, but I've never heard the split before.
I never had a feel for my curveball. I mean, there were times where it was like average, but that was it. That was it. I don't know if I had a bad grip. Nobody ever really they taught me. I never learned it, I should say, like how to truly throw a curveball where you're not like yanking it. Like I was always throwing a curveball to try to make it curve, not like snap and let it come out of your hand. We're like, there were people try to teach me like, snap, turn the doorknob, pull the lampshade down, do stuff like that. And it's just like, I don't know, man. There was some disconnect between my brain and my hand that I just could never make that work. And I would try, like I'd throw, if I was 0-2, I'd throw like a chase curveball, but I'd probably be throwing that just to set up a split.
Would it bounce or would it hang?
Well, I mean, I'd try to not have it hang. If I had to do anything, I'd bounce it. But that's what I mean. Like I'd try to keep it out of the zone. I would never really, I wouldn't start a guy with a curveball because I'd be afraid that I'd just throw a spinner down the middle of the plate and it'd crush it, because that happened.
That's really interesting. I bet it's all has to do with where your release is. Maybe you should have thrown more of a slurve.
Yeah, probably.
The guy.
You're exactly right. And in my older years, like I started messing around with a slider and even a cutter, and like I had a much better feel for that. But by that point, it was kind of too late. I should have ditched it. I wish so badly. They talk about like pitch shaping and stuff, and I mean that's a thing now. That's what we're talking about. Like I just wish I could have had that. And I went to school 2002 through 2006. Like I wish I could have somebody work with me on pitch shaping, because that's probably exactly what would have done with a camera and saying like, okay, this is your arm slot. This is how you're manipulating spin. This is what's happening with the ball out of your hand. This is what you should be throwing to like get that. I just threw what I felt like I could control and get to move. And that wasn't much.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, that's literally what they've done with Rich Hill's cutter. When I was down in spring, it was the efficiency was down, which that means the spin isn't useful. It was at like 48%, and it's gotten a little bit better. And you saw it today. It's almost spinning, and it has like I call it like an open door, where it's almost like a hole.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And it was catching better and really moving, but I felt like he was manipulating. He kept talking about feel in his post game. And I think he got the feel of what he was trying to do, and it looked like he was throwing underneath it. And I've really believed ever since I've watched him throw that he's a guy kind of like Baumgartner, where he can get underneath it and throw a cutter up, which is, I'm telling you right now, devastating when you see it, because you see the spin and the angle they're creating, very similar to the guy that was pitching yesterday. He throws 92, 93, and he throws a pizza pie uphill. So it's such a devastating pitch because it plays so much different because he's shorter. The same thing with Strider, but because Rich Hill, if he got on the side of that ball up top, it's a lot harder. You'd almost have to think down on that one. But the one he throws over here, it was going up today. Yeah. And they had no shot. It was unreal.
Let's see if this translates. So this is an AP photo today of Hill's delivery. I love that so much.
It's awesome.
I mean, it's not exactly what you're talking about, but like, look how far down he is where he's delivering. Like, I like that. And
then he has one of the higher releases too.
Right. Normally.
Yeah.
But he's really going down.
Yeah. It's wild, and how he understands when to use it, how to use it, and the feel he's got when he's going good, and the curveball at the top of the zone, just nobody swings at it. Like
Well, except in
he's
his last
throwing
start,
for the
they hit
moon.
a couple of them out.
Well, yeah, one was, I believe they were both cutters. One was a cutter.
Like cutters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The young kid was a cutter. They tried to go backdoors. The only time after that, he didn't throw another one out there.
His last start.
Oh, his last start. Yeah. Yeah. He gave up some homers, but they came to today still hitting 154 against it. So every hit was a homer, probably. But like he wasn't giving it up. And we all know that. And that's something that when they signed him and they signed Quintana, they signed Anderson, there's a reason, because our field at PNC really is an advantage to guys that get fly balls.
Yeah.
Especially pull side fly balls against righties. So that's why I was like, why did he start second? Why did he start second? Oviedo was a better matchup. Aranzi was a better matchup. Why did this happen? And it's like, oh, duh. He's going to get 2 starts at home. And he's going to get more starts at home now because of this. So that's exactly why they did it. But that's why kind of you're going to see, I think, a lot more of those type of signings, and why maybe they could possibly, draft some crafty lefties late in rounds, because it plays at the ballpark and you're going to get 82 games there. So why not?
Yeah.
There's 81. 81.
81.
Yeah.
81.
Not good at math right now. My brain is on fire.
Oh man. Okay. So Luis Robert was on a sweeper. I'm digging back into the pitch thing. And the second one. Okay. So we're both right. And Jake Berger was a curveball. So 1-1.
And I can't figure out a sweeper. I think he just gets on the side of whatever the cutter slider is.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it is. But today he stayed a lot more hard cutter, fastball, curveball. I thought it was really, really, really good.
Yeah, let's talk about the rotation for a bit. I don't want to delay Oneil Cruz talk too much, but I think the rotation is important. We'll pull this one. I mean, Hill has to be good. This is not optional. He has to be the way he was today. I'm a little worried about their rotation, frankly, for it. I expected JT Brubaker to play an integral role. He's obviously not. We learned today, 14 to 16 months. UCL reconstruction.
Does he come back as a reliever?
I think so.
I do too. I think he comes back a lot quicker too if he does that. I just talked to Tyler Matzik, and he's throwing already.
Yeah. But I mean, if he's a reliever, you're going to have him throwing sinker slider in a lot of stress on the elbow. I don't know. I don't care about his timeline. If he's 16 months, but he comes back healthy, I love Brew as an 8th inning guy, man.
I do too. What was it? The witch, Blake? Give me right here. Trinan. That's who I see.
Yeah, same. I love it. I love it. But anyway, like their starting rotation worries me a little bit. I loved what I've seen from Mitch Keller so far. Great. I'm not convinced that Vince Velasquez is going to give them any shred of consistency. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he figures it out. Really good dude, easy to like, but it's been scattershot for quite a few starts now. And Oviedo, I feel like has been really good since that first inning in Boston, but again, we'll see. I think his next start in St. Louis is going to be really special to see what he does there. I think he probably has a point to prove. Rowanzi, you see, okay, really, really good, and then bad. It's just I feel like much similar to the rest of the team. There's just going to be peaks and valleys here. And boy, would it help them if Rich Hill pitched commensurate with $8 million a year salary. What do you think?
Yeah, my fear is what happened to the bullpen with Velasquez and Contreras. That can't happen.
What? Blowing up
every two, yeah.
Short starts. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't happen like it did last year, this year, because they can't sustain it. Crow can't keep doing what he did. I mean, his all-time high twice in a short period of time out of the bullpen and pitches. And I don't think that's sustainable. We saw what it did to Underwood. And I think that's where you got to try to play that balance. And if Velasquez isn't going to be able to get deep in the games, I'm with you. I like him a lot, but he's going to the bullpen. And I got to throw somebody out there that's going to, be able to give me some, meat. Cause that's always been his MO. Like he was throwing so good the other day, just painting around the zone, but like the stuff isn't playing as up as you want it to. I think the changeup looks like it huge advantage if he trusts it. The numbers are good behind the scenes. It's played well when he's thrown it, but it's never been a pitch that he's really relied on.
Yeah.
And he had better shape on his breaking balls, but I've only seen that once. And then he got the ankle, and he's having a hard time landing too hard. We were talking about the other day and asked him, said, have you ever taken off your shoe and thrown a bullpen, or have you ever thrown a bullpen in turfs? He said, no, I never thought about it. I was like, watch Roger Clemens one time talk about throwing in turfs, and it legitimately will help you land soft. You land hard, you slide. And I said, I probably wouldn't do it like that if you have any Vibrams. Or my high school coach with Strider actually made him take his shoe off. And because you take your shoe off, you have all these nerve endings in your foot. So when you land, you feel it. You feel the ground. So you land softer, and it can change everything.
Coach made Spencer Strider throw barefoot. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, just about every guy that. Yeah, I mean, Spencer Strider, if you know him at all, that's not the weird things he does. when we play Atlanta in Atlanta, and he happens to pitch, or even here, or even on his bullpen day, go watch him. Don't do anything else that day. I'll get somebody to cover for you. I'll write for you. No, that's a terrible idea. But like, you need to watch his.
I can build in some time. What am I going to see?
He's legitimately obsessed with being good. So like, he is working through the middle of his body all the way down. You'll see him warm up just about every part of his body that he needs. And it's all focused on creating the best mobility so he can work down the mound and get better extension. He's only 5'10", 5'11", but he has a 92 or 93 percentile extension and an unhittable fastball because of where he releases it. Kind of looks like it's coming uphill. So he's constantly trying to get better and making sure all that's playing right. And he's a just absolute meathead in the weight room. So you need to watch him. It's very different. He's very new age, and he's out in front of what's new and how to get better. And the guy's just going to continue to grow. He really is. He's just going to get better and better.
Okay. So what happens if they need somebody else? I've thought about this. I mean, Mike Burrows should have been the first, well, not one of the first two up, depending on him and Luis Ortiz, whoever's pitching better. Obviously, Ortiz is going to be up. What happens if they need more starters, man? Like, I don't know what you do. And you're operating with like a young arm in Rowe, obviously another young arm in Ortiz. We'll see what happens. Hill's 43. He and or Velasquez could be trade candidates. I don't think Quinn Priester is ready from what I've seen with my own two eyes and then have seen from a distance following minor league box scores. Like, I'm just kind of confused what happens if they need to build out starter depth. And like, they have it, but it really hurts, in my opinion, losing Brubaker and Burrows the way they did.
Oh, it's a huge knock. So you think about what they did with Contreras last year. They protected him, and they're going to want to protect these guys that come up too. And after JT's down and Burrows is down, if Ortiz comes up, they're going to take off the gloves? Probably not. So
I hate that, by the way.
I hate it. I hate it. Yeah.
I can be on record saying the kid glove treatment.
I hate it.
Is part of the problem in the proliferation of arm injuries with pitchers. Like, we're babying everybody.
Amen. I will tell you right now, there's a study out there, and I'll find it for you that'll prove just that. But like, they need to throw more.
Yep.
Like, it's like, if you are going to run long distance, you have to build an engine. You're a runner, right?
Yep.
We have forgotten that somehow in American baseball.
I know.
We've forgotten to build up the engine. And Alan Yeager has done tons and tons of research on throwing. And a lot of these guys do the Yeager program. Driveline's done tons of research, but there's one element that's happening that's new. It's pitch design. And it's happening earlier and earlier. And these guys have never done it before, and they don't understand feel, like a touch and feel.
Yep.
Me and Rich were talking about this before. And they go out and they try to design this pitch and try to create spin and try to create shape, and it's December. Yep. And they've never done that before. So they're in uncharted territories. It's like me going to run a marathon. You better bring a cart to carry me through. Yep. I'll get there, but I'm not going to be okay when I'm done.
Yep.
And that's kind of what's happening. Like Burrow's pitch design, JT pitch design. It's not that was wrong or right. It's absolutely right. They're not understanding the give and take. You have to throw about 80%, but once you see those numbers getting close, you're like spinning harder, you're throwing more. It's like, you only have so many bullets at 1,000%. Where's your 80, 90%? Because that's the key for that. And I think that's the problem. I'm with you 100%. We saw what it's done to Contreras. I feel like he's been a little bit of a mind gym of sorts ever since. You know, he's up there doing a little bit of a cartwheel, some jumping jacks, and then he does a backflip. And he's trying to figure out where he's at because he's fighting right now.
I worry about his velo being down too.
Me
Man.
too. Me too.
I know
he's leaving his arm behind too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 3 miles an hour at times. Mm-hmm. It's not insignificant. You know, we asked Shelton about it after his last start, and he said he's not worried about the velocity. And I mean, I realize as the manager, that's what you have to say. But yeah, 2021, he had a forearm thing, kept him out for 2 months. And we're seeing a dip in velo. And I like you're talking about this, you know, pitch designing, throwing you around. I knew he threw a lot in the Dominican back home. I don't know where I come down on Fort. I like in a way, I want these guys. Like, I know one thing that always happened with me after a start, I wanted to throw. I wanted to throw more. I found solace not in like resting my arm, but in using it, not in like high stress day after day, but in putting it, you know, in some sort of motion. But I also agree with you that like the pitch design thing year round, you can't have it. It's too much. Like, you only have so many bullets, and eventually something's going to break. And unfortunately with these guys, it did.
Unless you're built like that. I will say Max Scherzer does not take a day off, and he hasn't his entire career unless he's hurt.
No, but he doesn't go max effort every day either.
Exactly. That's the key
he
word.
He knows when to throttle. He can throttle it.
Yep, like you took an old man walk, right? You would love to run, but
yep.
You got something in. And I think that's what they forget. Like, I heard this by a bunch of different people. The game is creating bullpen arms across the board. The Rich Hills are dying. Pretty much the entire Cubs staff is dying, but those guys have more value right now to get deeper in ball games and to take innings on, because you don't really, you're like, all right, like Marcus Stroman, go ahead. Like, get out there and do it. And that's what we have to understand. You have to build both breeds.
Yeah.
You know, that's why not many people, what's the Kentucky Derby? When you win all three, that's why it's so hard to win all three.
Yeah.
And it's because you're a hybrid, or maybe you can do it all, but
what is it to win all three? Triple crown?
Triple crown.
There we go. Okay.
And it's really hard, right?
It doesn't seem right for some. Okay.
Some of these power guys, they're better off just going straight to the bullpen. Let it eat. And if they start to figure it out and you see it, then you bring them back in maybe. But yeah, it does worry me with how it kind of goes, because it's always max effort. And there's no red line. So they're just throttled constantly. Like, even the bullpens, man. I couldn't believe some of the bullpens that I've seen over the years. I'm like, he's throwing 97 in a bullpen. It used to be like you wouldn't see 92, but the guy could throw 97. It's because he was feeling it out. But now they can quantify it, and I know it's exciting because I've done it post playing hitting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that exit velocity on that pitch, I didn't know I hit that well.
I have something for you, Fort. This is like a theoretical thing, but so we've seen in baseball, I think the pitch clock, more running, larger bases, the lack of a shift, all that stuff, I think it is created to make a better product. And my point is not so much about the rules and influencing the 2023 product. Do you think anybody could take a look at that and say, you know what, maybe things aren't better now. Maybe we're not doing it a better way. Maybe 92 is okay. Maybe like take a little bit off and don't get hurt all the time. It shouldn't be such an obsession over velocity. Do you think ever Major League Baseball, or just baseball in general, will ever shift back from the velocity craze that is happening right now? Or are we kind of in it for good?
Oh, it'll shift.
Yeah.
I think it's already starting to hit a little bit. Guys that are
because of injuries?
No, not because of injuries, because guys get hurt and they don't throw hard. It's the fact that they see the value of guys that have command and that can manipulate the ball. I mean, there's a reason Greg Maddux pitched 24 years or whatever it was. Tom Glavine, like Steve Avery, all those guys in Atlanta, none of them threw hard except Smoltz. They all had plus command and had great changeups and could manipulate the ball, constantly moving, their fingers around, doing stuff. And that's a huge value. I think we got to remember that. And guys throwing 200 innings was the norm back in the day, and it's dead. because even in the minor leagues, they're talking about doing I think the new rule is like 6 on the road, 6 at home. They're getting everything paid for. They're under a pitch count. Like everything is controlled. And then they get to the big leagues and nothing's controlled to a certain extent, especially if you're winning. If you're winning, everything dies.
Yep.
That's the thing, is like you never train for that part. Like when a guy doesn't pitch 3 days in a row or 4 days in a row in the playoffs, he's grabbing the ball and he's pitching because everybody wants that ring.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to find somewhere to get above that demand. Like today, I'm in the cage and I'm watching, Heineman and Sawinski hitting a machine that's throwing straight up because it's above the demands of what they're going to see in the game. So it's an angle that's so extreme that if they don't work on top, they're in trouble. And they were hitting it well. And then I watched Sawinski go out and hit the ball pretty well at the top of the zone, but they're doing extreme things to get there. And that's like, you can't do it any other way. At some point, you have to push that limit.
Yeah. All right. Well, we could talk about velocity and arm health and all this stuff for a long time. And who would be really good on the topic is Rich Hill. I'm sure you've talked to him off the record about like what, and this might be something I dive into for a Post-Gazette story. We've talked off the record about it, but he's fascinating.
I'll bring him on one day. I'll bring him on. We'll bring him on. That'd be fun.
You know what? Rich would probably do it to talk about things like, coaching his kid or pitch design or just pitching, nerdy baseball stuff. But anyway, I wanted to talk about Oneil Cruz for it. We can't ignore the unicorn in the room, so to speak. I wanted to take this.
My wife calls him the Pegasus, by the way.
The Pegasus.
It's like he can't be a unicorn. He has to be like something different.
Why can't he be a unicorn?
It's like unicorns are pretty and whatnot. He needs to be a little bit terrifying, throwing lightning bolts and stuff. So flying horse, I'm cool with it. And former Blue Raider.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure Sebi Zavala was quite terrified during that game, seeing Cruz barreling down the line.
He should have killed him. He should have hit him hard. That's the only way it would have been okay.
Okay. All right. You went there.
I would have expected it.
What's that? You would have expected it.
Yeah. We're just not teaching it. Like it's the reverse Buster Posey rule. It's happened multiple times. Just Cruz is the biggest name.
Is that what you think happened though? Like he thought about he was going to truck the catcher and then he realized at the last second, oh crap, I can't do that. I better slide.
I think I think it was the exact opposite. I don't think that ever crossed his mind.
Well, then why did he slide?
Because he didn't know what to do. Because he was waiting for him to make a move, and then he jumps and he's in the lane, and there's nowhere for Cruz to go unless he goes around or slides super early, and then he's going to land on top of him anyways. So he's just stuck. And I can't imagine being a Ferrari running 90 feet. You know what I mean? So like he's going so fast.
Yeah.
There's really nothing to do. He throws up those hands. And if he would have hit him, they could have never overturned it. He could have caught him, but like he got caught in between. And that happens all the time. All the time. Like I slid into second base 1,000 times. One time I slid in a tick too late, knee completely cut my meniscus in half just because I was late, because I was trying to wait too long. And it's kind of what it looked like. But yeah, what he should have done is hit him. That's the only way he wouldn't have gotten hurt, but maybe the other guy would have gotten hurt.
Yeah.
Or maybe they both would have gotten hurt.
Okay. Here's how I would have attacked that, because I think there's two ways you can look at that slide. I think you can look at it and say, oh, he should have kept going and stuck his hand in and had like a late overslide. That's an easy way of sort of Monday morning quarterbacking it, right?
Oh my gosh, isn't it?
Not in the moment do you realize where that throw is going to be, whether it's late. When you're taught when they leave their feet too, Mac. When they leave their feet, you're taught to react around it. Right.
But he was so far down the line, he had nowhere to go, and he was trying to go back, knowing the throw was going to beat him.
Now, I will say this is a borderline dirty thing, but it's also not, because it's legal. Something I like to do, if you're sliding and the guy's standing there, put your spike into a shin guard.
Yeah.
You
have to protect yourself.
You have to protect yourself. You're allowed to slide. If your spike is going toward home plate and his leg happens to be there, you are never going to get called for that. You come in full force and slide, you knock him over on his face, he doesn't catch the ball. Guess what? He might be pissed off, but chances are Oneil Cruz does not get injured with that slide. And very good chance he's safe, because Sebi Zavala can't make the play. And that's committing to a slide early. So I don't know what was going through Oneil Cruz's head. It could have been, I'm going to run him. It could have been, I'm going to slide late. Oh, wait, I can't do that. I'm not sure. Maybe he just didn't want to slide, period, and thought he could avoid it. I'm not sure. But I mean, if you commit to a slide early and you say, like, I'm going into home plate, my target, if there's something in the way of that, I'm blowing it out of there. You've got a full head of steam. You can knock him, take his leg out. I've never seen that called for.
So no, I got hit 3 times in 15, like legitimately, like Mac hip slid in and hit me. Turner hit me and someone else, I don't remember who it was in LA. They all hit me. But like they were taught, if I'm in the lane or if I'm taking the ball in the lane, that's free game.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're teaching consistently now. That was pretty new to the rule. But I was teaching myself. It wasn't the way that we were taught in spring training to take the ball into contact. So I was doing the exact same thing, just opposite. Because if I caught it and reached and tried to tag, I felt vulnerable. And 2, that gives them a huge lane. So there's a gray area in the rule where they can't tell you how to play the ball. So the ball can always bring you in. I was really, really good. Wasn't good at everything, but I was really good at plays at the plate.
Magician act though, man.
Well, but I was really
read the ball in, bring the ball into contact, and then not scream.
Bounce bring me into contact. The bounce. So if I could, I would let the bounce bring me in. And I was very diligent about knowing my guys' arms. And then I would sometimes even take the bad hop to go into it. And because it's a run. A run means everything. And I'd put myself in, my wife hated it, but I put myself in harm's way. And before the rule, I would just stand on the plate. I got destroyed a couple of times. But with that being said, I don't know if you remember, Reynolds slid in Cincinnati and almost did the same thing as Cruz. He went into, what's their catcher's name? The really good hitter, Cincinnati.
Stevenson.
He's there and he's got the ball super early and he couldn't decide what he's going to do, but he slid in, like you're saying, and then hit him. And that's what you have to do. Yeah. I had a coach tell me one time, there's a ball and a bunt. It's the in-between, whether you round it or go straight to it or banana it. And he goes, if you don't make a decision now, you're going to make a mistake in the year. And I kid you not, every single year I watched a guy make that mistake. And it's the same thing. When you go home, you have to decide if they're in the lane, are you going to hit them? You're going to go spikes. You're going to slide early, but you can't slide late. Sliding late is always a devastating thing for the guy sliding. Always.
Right, exactly.
And that's exactly what happened.
And that was my point early. You'd never go spikes into skin, right? Like that's messed up. And you would never slide to hurt somebody who's not
used to. They were. I played with Giles. He were what are they? Soccer shin guards.
Who did?
Giles, Marcus. He were all those guys. Yeah, because he just got destroyed.
Jeez.
Yeah, because that was the game. Like you better move. Yeah, it's changed a lot. It really has.
That's nuts, man. I could never imagine doing it. The only reason I'd be okay doing it is because it's a catcher with the shin guard. And like, you're not trying to maim him. You're just trying to take him down. Now, I do wish baseball, like I wish they'd get rid of the Buster Posey rule. I am not a fan of it. Like, I think it's too reactionary. Baseball was a certain way for a long, long time.
Well, he was targeted. I mean, he got hit when he was in a vulnerable place. It wasn't even like he was trying to make a play. He was reaching.
Right.
And I think if you just say, don't target.
Yeah. I
think that's fair. Like I got hit in AA and I'm pretty sure he was 5'9", 180, a cornerback. He was going to go play cornerback somewhere. He hit me and I landed on the grass. He hit me so hard. I didn't even have the ball anywhere near me. And I got up and smacked him on the butt. I was like, that was a good one, big guy. Woo!
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about these plays, right? Like, you're going to hang in there if you feel like you have a play as a catcher, and a catcher has a read to make too. And you know how, like, you're reading that play, as you said earlier, you're timing out your outfielder's arms. You know if it's going to get there or not. If it's not, you're bailing. You know you're not going to get creamed for no reason. It's going to be a bang, bang play. You are, as best you can, bracing yourself for that hit. It's not perfect, but if you know how to do the catcher's angle of that, like, I mean, I'm sure at some point in your career, you were even taught how to absorb that hit.
Yeah, you go down to 2 knees. And a lot of guys should do that because you fold over. So you catch it. I didn't have to. I was like a cannonball. So Going down to two knees wasn't a big deal.
It's still
So
like a cannonball for it.
yeah, so I would land and go in hard, especially after Atlanta. But I would go in like that, and if guys hit me, I would kind of roll.
Yeah.
That's how they're taught. The two knee thing, I always felt more vulnerable. I felt like I had enough underneath me to hold my ground if I didn't do that, and I was in a good place most of the time. I did get destroyed a couple times though.
Yeah. That's just the cost of doing business, man. I mean,
It is.
you don't want to see anybody get concussed. You don't want to see anybody get hurt, but like, I don't know. You went into this game knowing what you were signing up for. I played it for as long as I did, knowing what I was signing up for. And I guarantee you every person now playing this game knows that there are risks involved, man. You think JT Brubaker wasn't aware that he could shred his elbow? I mean, it's a cost of doing business. It's unfortunate, but it is. So,
and
anyway.
I don't think he regrets any second of what he did and how he grew. And if he uses his time, the biggest moments of the growth, and then getting back on the field, not skipping a beat, but actually being better, because you learn the game in a completely different way. So I would encourage those guys to get in the stands and watch it. If they can get up in the booth, watch it with the video guys, watch it with the scout, learn it from a perspective you could never learn it as a player, because your eyes will just be wide open.
Yep. Watch it as a beat writer. Do that.
Well, you're kind of like a scout. Like all those things come down. Yeah, you're like all those things. Hey, there is something I wanted to ask you, because I feel like I'm seeing it everywhere.
Okay.
The injuries aren't stopping. I feel like they're like on overdrive right now. Everywhere. Every single year. Okay. We have a track man tracking everything that's happening and dispersing it all of a sudden for free on Baseball Savant.
Okay.
How the heck can we not get this better? In your opinion? I have a billion opinions on this, but like
what? And reduce injuries?
Yeah, it's a joke.
Oh, I don't think you'll ever forget. I think it
With
is
all the quantified data and matrix and all these nerds putting this stuff together constantly. And it was like, I got the next best thing. It's not happening.
But like, I mean, those guys aren't going to put people in bubble wrap, man. And I mean,
no,
look at it.
I think that's one of the problems, Marker.
Well, no, it's not that. I mean, the problem to me is that these guys are very expensive investments. And I hate describing it as that because, I mean, you make these guys like stock, but it's true.
It is.
It's true. Like the way the front office looks at this, like
to a certain extent, I think if they really looked at it like that, like if they really looked at it like that and they knew how much control they had over it, they would probably do some things different.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, you look at it, okay, this is the decision you're making. If there's a small itty bitty injury, do you play through it, or do we put you on the IL for 10 or 15 days and hope that it gets better and we avoid something larger? So I think
do you have a choice most of the time?
No, I think you try to have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not black and white. You don't say like, well, if I keep playing you, you're going to get hurt and be done for the year. But if I rest you now, you're going to be okay. It's like you just try to stave things off. Everybody treads cautiously.
Mm.
You know, it's probably more like our society. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody wants to get offended. Like nobody wants to really play through anything because why? If you feel something in your hamstring, go take a seat for 10 days. And again, like, why? We're going to, you start having things like load management and, sitting guys and optimizing performance, and guys are going to get days off anyway. And like every team's turned into a rotation. I love baseball teams, and there are still a few of them where you can play a series and they'll have the same 1 through 9 for 3 games. It's like, well, he's our number 2 hitter, plays first base.
We're about to play one of those teams.
I know we are. They're thinking 4th
in all baseball and offense.
I know. Hey man,
I do think there are staples. Like I had a hard time. I always have a hard time. Like Connor Joe gets 4 hits, sits 2 days. Swinsky looks hot. He sits a day. Kutch hits a homer, first homer at PNC. He sits the next day with a really good matchup too. It's like, I get it. You have those off days, but like McCutcheon's not Chick-fil-A. He's not closed on Sundays, right? All older guys should play like day games. It's when your body really like feels good.
Yeah.
And the ball flies. And yeah, so I think there needs to be more communication, more transparency, and understanding of like where a guy's threshold is. Because
Yeah.
like if Kutch is leading your team in stolen bases and he's playing the best right field you have, for me, your best investment is playing in right field if he wants to play out there.
Yep.
Vice versa, like Connor Joe's breaking, how to really good at bat. More time in the cage, that's kind of how you got to play it out. I think that always plays out better.
Couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's my argument for pitchers staying in games. Like I third time through, I understand it. Teams are skittish with it, whatever. I also, to a degree, don't care. Like typical third time through stats do not govern what a guy might have on that day. And that's
Amen.
why I think it should override it. Like if my starter is in such a groove that he's dominating, he looks really good. And I can tell with my eyes that he looks really good. And you could put metrics on the stuff that he's throwing, and it's going to show really well. Don't take him out. Don't take him out because you're using metrics that are compiled on stuff that you don't currently have, if that makes sense, to make a decision on whether to let this guy continue or not. You can say that simpler. If your guy is actually good, don't stop him. Don't stop him. Just let him keep going. So anyway,
I would say this
about baseball today too.
No, I agree. And if they never get an opportunity to, they're never going to figure it out.
Yeah, it's another.
And then the confidence goes way, 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 way down. And that was my job a lot of times, just being a friend or a psychologist for these guys. Just listen, and some of the stuff you hear, you're like, man, why do you believe that you're an all-star? It's the second half. You haven't a good second half. He's like, yeah, but they keep doing this and this and this. And like, you don't realize how much they're affected by moves that are made, and they're not told how good they really are consistently. So, they need to remember that. And two, Mackey, the one thing that I don't understand sometimes is like, yeah, the matchup's better, like possibly, but the eye test plays, and you kind of say, okay, well, this could make sense. But at the same time, like, when are they going to start quantifying the bad stuff? Because everybody has a trend to bad too in this game, right? Yep. Like, oh, he's trending in the right direction. I'm like, well, he's trending in the wrong direction. It's something I've been trying to like play around with in my mind, because everybody has that trend. If you start to see it, what could happen? Like, all these guys are human beings. They're eventually going to fall. So it's like, what's that look like? And I think if they start looking at both sides, maybe that would really help.
Yeah. Yeah. It does seem like there's a lot of, this was predetermined. This is a good matchup. Maybe it's just what they're saying publicly. I don't know. But I would like to see a lot more of like, hey, man, dude's been hitting the ball. He looks really good. We're just going to let him go. That's like never an answer.
Yeah, I think that's the balance of great teams, though. Don't you? Like, I look over at Dusty Baker, and I got to talk to him today, and it reminds me that old school mentality of like very strong convictions plays. And I think that's why Bruce Bochy's in Texas. I think that's why Atlanta's really successful. I think that's why Shelton's here, is to earn that right. But that feel is important, because that's what wins the playoff games. Because we've seen LA go in every year, but 2020 and walk out every year a loser. And they have the best analytical department in all of baseball.
Yep. All right. So we started off talking about Oneil Cruz, and we went down the rabbit hole of plays the plate and baseball and all that stuff.
Of course.
Oh, the modern product, I should say. But they have a pretty big hole to fill here, Fort. I know who I want to see fill that spot. Who do you want to see fill that spot?
I want to hear yours first.
G1 Bay.
I want Castro.
Okay. There's something about Bay in this lineup, man.
I want him in the lineup.
Yeah.
Every day. Every day I want him in the lineup.
Who do you want, Castro and Bay up the middle?
Yeah, and I'm even okay with Bay playing more center field. I haven't decided where he best fits, and long-term answer, like, we need a center fielder.
I'm not sure what they're doing in the outfield at this point. I don't know if they know what they're doing in the outfield.
I don't either. I don't either.
I mean, I'm fine if you want to put Castro at short. My hill that I want to die on is I want G1 Bay. Well, I don't want to die on the hill, but I will die on the hill. I want G1 Bay in the lineup every day.
Me too.
I don't see a reason to not have him in there. I don't care lefty, righty. I mean, if he goes in a slump and he's not producing, fine, get him out of there. But like, I want to give him a steady dose of playing time, and I want to see what he is.
Yeah, I could see if you want to protect him here and there against maybe an awful matchup, but yeah, he should be in the lineup every single day. Absolutely every single day. And his matchups are always going to be a little funny because of the way he hits the ball. Like it's not just necessarily a lefty, right? They're doing this on pitching wise, like, oh, the matchup's really, really good. And they did the reverse with Connor Joe and he got 4 hits. There's a way to play these guys where they, have more success. And I think Bay's a little bit of an oddity depending on if he's hot or not, because he's going to hit stuff.
Whether the way to play a guy for it, just put him in the lineup and say he's playing.
I love it.
Give him a bat, send him the plate, and say, you're going to hit 4 times today, kid. I want to see what you have.
And you get a snow cone out in the game. That's right, baby.
And then the next day, we're going to do something really crazy. We're going to give him a bat again. We're going to tell him to go to the plate, hit 4 times, and see what you're going to do. And I'm not going to react to 10 plate appearances, or maybe probably won't even react to 20 plate appearances. I don't want to talk to you for 2 weeks. I want to see what happens. If it's 1 for 40, then I'm going to bench you. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you a little bit of a chance.
One simple person you have to think about with all you just said, Mitch Keller.
Yeah.
If you want guys to be great in this game, they have to fail, period. Yep. And they can't fail at AAA. They have to fail at the big leagues. Like it's a certainty. And the more you're willing to allow that, and they're willing to take and keep going forward, and you're willing to trust that process, because it's hard. That means they're betting on that human being. A lot of times these guys are betting on the analytics. And with Mitch Keller, you had a little bit of both. I think they saw this kid and said, we just can't give up on him. We can't let him go and let, him become a Charlie Morton or a Garrett Cole or a Glasnow or blah, blah, blah. The reality of it is that could happen any day at any time, but they did. And he got as much grace as I've ever seen anybody get. I don't care how good a prospect was. I've seen guys go up and down, up and down. He got grace. Look where he's at.
Yep.
So you bet on the right person. If G.Y. Bay is in their mind the right person, you got to let him go. You're exactly right.
I don't know if he is or not. I mean, he might stink, but I'd like to find out. And I think
he's a good player.
Lineups and integrate guys into the lineup. Like, it's tough. It's tough to get traction. Like, nobody, even if you're producing, is going to play more than 3 or 4 days in a row.
Well, it's also really hard when you're moving around in the lineup.
That too.
Like, especially with the new rules. Like, if you're hitting first, it's completely different than hitting ninth. And if you're just doing that every now and then, that's a huge difference, because if you make that last play, you better hurry and get back if you have any type of routine to get out on deck to be ready to hit that first pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's intriguing, man. And it's a pretty big blow having Cruz out. I guess I'm not really breaking any news to anybody, but there's a lot that falls on other guys. Like, one of my first reactions when he went down was like, okay, G-Man Choi needs to be more than G-Man Choi has been. Jack Sawinski needs to be more than Jack Sawinski has been. They need power from the left side. Those are 2 quick guys I look at. I know Mark Mathias came up as the direct roster swap, but I'm not really looking for much out of Mathias. I'm not sure if he's going to stick permanently. But guys who have hit with power before, it's time. It's time. This isn't a lineup with a ton of thump. I think they're trying to make the best with what they have. I've obviously liked Reynolds. I've liked Carlos Santana. Connor Joe has contributed. Key Brian Hayes, I think there's another level in there that we saw in spring that hasn't quite come out.
I'll give you something that I wanted to tell you on him. So he's obviously still hitting the ball hard, and he had a really, really good day today, especially when it comes to great contact.
And got robbed by McCormick.
Yeah, got robbed, hit an absolute missile, and Bregman, catches it. So today I saw his hands stay. So he was trying to create a better angle, and he stopped. And I use Adam Frazier as the best example. He's going to live and die with who he is. And if he'll commit to that, I think we're going to see the Key Brian of spring. But spring is always going to be an outlier, because he's facing guys that aren't going to pitch him the way they're going to pitch him during season. And until he commits and understands, they're going to throw him constantly down and away with good breaking balls, because he's going to run out of bat, because he's constantly working in and out of the zone, how good his inside out approach is. And that's made him late, because he's seen that breaking ball and then they're throwing a fastball in. So if he just stays with who he is, be early before he's late, and block those fastballs off, he'll get the breaking balls, hit the homers. And he knows it. And I saw that adjustment today. I saw him try to play with his hands going down and they would just float up as he was lifting his leg. I'm like, this is never going to work. It's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like Alonzo, right? He creates an angle from a low position to high, and it's really smooth. A lot of guys can do that, and it works perfectly. That would have worked great for him, and it would have helped him possibly combat some of the things that happened early on, but it just couldn't work. Today, I saw him stick to his guns, and it looked different. And I think that's a good sign that, moving forward, we could see a lot more, whether it's gap power or home run power, who cares? It'll come together in the way it comes together. He's strong. He doesn't play at a park that is necessarily friendly to him if on the pull side. So mash the balls to the right side.
I know this. They need it. They absolutely
They do.
Guys offensively to carry the water or carry the load or whatever it is that you carry when you need to score more runs.
Yes.
Well, we'll find out. We got 4 in St. Louis. I fly there tomorrow morning. What do you think of St. Louis, Fort? You a big St. Louis fan?
Yes. Personally, I'm a huge St. Louis fan.
Really?
Yeah. It was my last cup in the big leagues. Some of the human beings there are outstanding. They do it the right way from what I know and understand. Yep. And the fans, whether you're really home or visitor, it's like going to the Masters. It's just like, well done. You know what I mean? I mean, it could be, 50,000 people there and it doesn't feel like it, but then it does. But they treat you kind of different. So I think it's a great place. I think the young guys that have never been there are going to absolutely love it. I think we're going in the right time. I think we could really take off with our offense because their pitching is really, really not good.
Yeah.
And we match up well against a lot of those guys. Some of the young guys, maybe not, but the older guys really do.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how we come out on top. But that offense is, potent. I don't know if you've seen what Gorman's been doing. So everybody's talking about Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And this Gorman kid got an opportunity. I don't know if it's because of Newt Bart, but he's a third baseman. And he had another homer today. I think he's got 4. And he's hitting like 350. He's mashing. But Goldie's raking.
Yeah.
Nolan's heating up. All these guys are hitting 310 or higher. Last I checked. Walker's hit every single game he's played in. And then Contreras hasn't started, and he's a Pirate killer. So we're going into a very good, potent offense, and we're playing a lot of day games. And that's a great time to hit at Busch Stadium. I call it Busch's Stadium during the day because there's a lot of bushes. So, yeah, I like us going in there against a good team. They were the front runners, even though I think the Cubs are the best team in this division at times, mixed with Milwaukee. So it's a very interesting division, to say the least. And St. Louis has some of the better players for sure. What about you?
I'll leave you to break down the roster. I'll break down the city and the travel and the logistics of it. I love it, man. It's one of my favorite trips. People will say, like, really? You like St. Louis?
Mine too.
What's wrong with you? I think
what's wrong with you?
Like, dude, I can go on a great run, right underneath the arch and all that stuff, and I can get a great meal. Steps of my hotel, I can get fantastic barbecue. I can go have a couple beers somewhere after a game if I feel like it. I can walk to Busch Stadium. It's a great stadium to work in. I don't mind the clubhouse. I don't mind the press box. It's all logistically very good. I don't mind the heat. It doesn't bother me any. So, when I go to a road city, that's what I'm looking for. A Marriott close to a ballpark, a place to eat, place to drink. Not drink a lot, but you have 1 or 2 after a game. Yeah, sure.
It's great for recovery. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, right.
High glycemic, it really is. But if you don't think that place is hot, go to the Cage. It's the devil's armpit down there.
The devil's armpit.
It is. It's the hottest place in the world. It's got to be right next to hell.
The hottest I've ever been in my life for it was when it was 101 last year in St. Louis. I was just sweating profusely at all times. I don't know how guys did it. It was insane.
It's a different type of hot. I don't get it. Like it's strange. You go to Atlanta and you're like, man, we just came from St. Louis and it was just as hot. What is happening? They call us Hot Atlanta for a reason. Right?
Yeah.
It's
those two, man.
Yeah, it's wild. I know we're about out of time. I wanted to ask you a question, and something Rob King has said over and over again. How long do they need to hold on for the urgency to come where and I feel like this is what they thought this year. It's like, all right, we don't really know. We have a little bit of hope, but we want to see growth and we want this team to push us. How long do you think they have to stay? I don't want to say relevant. I hate that word, but like around, because they've started really well. Some of the divisions started
Do
really
what?
bad.
How long do they need to stay around to do what?
Like 2018, 2019, right? That 2018 trade should have nobody thought the Pirates are going to be.
I don't think there's any way, shape, or form you see a trade like that.
No, I'm not saying that. We have such a good system. I'm saying where they feel urgent enough to make in-house upgrades, baby upgrades where they need them, in the sense of like, we're going to probably see Henry Rodriguez. We're probably going to see a lot of these guys at least touch the big leagues this year.
Did you intentionally call him Henry Rodriguez?
I do it every time. I've been doing it constantly because I talked to Mayo today and it was just too much because everybody's arguing about the first pick and everybody wants Crew, but nobody's talking about the kid that throws 108 that is LSU too. So yeah, I have so many names in my head. But yeah, I wanted to get your opinion on that before you got off, because that is interesting, because people ask me all the time, like, what's your predictions with the year, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I can tell you they're going to probably be, without anything changing, the Cubs, because you can put that on paper and I could prove that in a heartbeat, but that's with nothing changing. So if anyone gets better or Kutch is better, Santana's better, that changes the outcome for me. So it's
I don't know if I see a big change here. I really don't. I think they're going to make business moves that make sense, i.e. if G-Man Choi hits, I think they're going to trade him. If Hill or Velasquez, and maybe both, pitch well, they'd try to trade him. I don't think they would do. I know they won't do it with McCutchen. I would be surprised if they did it with Santana. I think they really like.
I think they would do it with McCutchen. I do. I hate to say that, but like the best move is the best move, and I think Sheraton's going to take the best move.
No, I don't think he would. And I think if he tried, I think he'd get overruled. I really do.
I do think he would. That's a really good point. He would get overruled. You're right.
I think Nutting would say no.
You're right.
We're not doing this to our fans again.
Agreed.
It might make.
I didn't think about that point.
But anyway, like, I don't see a bunch changing for it. I don't think in season is going to be the time where they make like upgrades. I think they're going to like let kids play the second half of the year as they should. And I think they'll probably reassess next offseason. If you ship out Hill, Velasquez, let's say they bring up Ortiz, and let's say in a perfect world, Quinn Priester is somehow ready, like Priester and or Burrows, like they to me will fill those spots. And then I don't know, maybe you get to a point where Henry Rodriguez, Henry Davis or Endy Rodriguez pushes for a job up here. Okay, give him an opportunity the second half of the year, play him and see what happens. And then you reassess at the end of the year. Do we need to bring Austin Hedges back? Do we want to bring somebody else in to back them up, to complement them? Are both of them ready to go? I don't know. See what happens at first base. Like, you ship out Choi, but who knows if Triolo winds up getting healthy and produces over there. I really like Malcolm Nunez. Is he an option? Don't know. In the outfield, what do you do? Like, do you trade Connor Joe? Do you try to flip somebody else? Does Swaggerty come back? Anyway, like, there's a lot of internal calculus that goes into it. In my opinion, I don't see them giving up some of the assets they have, mainly because, anybody who's going to be wanted in a trade is going to be somebody they want to keep and try to keep up here and use during their cheap earning years, as opposed to acquiring a veteran if they can do it. That's just, but if they don't have that option, then I think that's where you're going to see them spend the money.
So rolling in, I was just looking at the schedule. Theoretically, they play the Diamondbacks at home on the 19th. They have a winning record, or even 500. And the dudes down in AAA are doing some things. Guys up here are holding the fort. No pun intended.
Yep.
Did they push? Weird. Do they push? Because we play some really good teams up to that point. We got Tampa, 1st of May, play the Blue Jays, Seattle. We play some of the big bangers right out of the gate. Huh?
What are you talking about here?
Meaning, like, if they're right there and you could upgrade in-house, do you think they're going to push? Or is it going to be the old mentality? Like, we saw, obviously, Cruz come up, later last year and stuff. But I'm saying, if we're relevant, that could be buzz. That could be go. And
I mean, so you're asking me if they're going to bring up a player who's producing in the minor leagues
to
fill
replace
a hole
guys
that they have
and flip them
in the major leagues.
like Tampa Bay. Do the Tampa Bay approach.
Yes, of course.
Okay. That's all I was trying to like.
Okay.
Like that's the thing is like I don't know. I don't know where their threshold is. Like if they're 5 games back and that's what I'm trying to like say
I
is
don't
like
think they have a threshold. I think moves that make business sense. Like their priority is going to be playing young kids and prospects, guys who are ready. So if there's a guy in the major leagues who's productive and they can trade him, I absolutely think they will. Doesn't matter when it is. I still think if somebody would give them an offer they like for Choi tomorrow, I think they'd probably do it. They'd be smart to do it. You figure it out. I mean, again, if you got a trade that you really liked and you felt like, oh, this is, this hits our line, this hits our value line, they're not going to get it right now. I just mean like, I think they're fine with that if they get the right deal and they have somebody to backfill. I don't know if it even matters whether they're in contention or not. I don't think they're even thinking about contention. I think they're thinking about how to build and how to give guys opportunity. I know that's boring and I sound like Ben Cherington, but I think it's reality.
Yeah, I mean, every GM when they walk into the room, they have their 5-year plan. That's pretty much how it goes. They sit it, they map it out, and they say, "This is my 5-year plan." And whether it comes to life or not, you have to wait. But yeah, I just wonder if a certain type of team could push that. And some GMs won't leave. They will not leave that line. That they're going to stick to the guns. Period. And I just wonder, like, I think Sherrington's a little bit more creative, a little bit different. He's learned from different people. Like, what's that bar to just push the button and say, go?
Yep. All right. We're going to push another button and we're going to go because you've heard us for long enough.
Stop it. You just did that, didn't you? Stop it.
Put it on a tee for me.
I did.
As much as I can't hit, I took a swing and I touched it. So I also have stuff to do here before catching a flight to St. Louis in the morning. So it's been good to talk some ball with you, Fort. Always
absolutely. Absolutely, brother. Safe travels. We'll do this again soon. And once again, you're just a blast to talk to. Keep it up.
Keep it up. All right, keep listening to Pitching In, folks. Thank you.